Good morning. Good morning. My name is Ron Lennox, and I am here to introduce our speaker today. Let me ask everyone, how many of you would consider yourself an avid reader? Oh, lots. I don't know why I'm putting my hand up. Of you, of you that are avid readers, how many of you started reading before entering school? Yeah, you don't remember. Well, that is as it should be, right? Reading at a young age is critical for future success. I think we all know that. Okay? Yet many children, particularly in rural areas of Mexico, enter school without basic reading skills. For many, reading is school related or vocation related. It isn't part of fun. It isn't part of recreation. It isn't enjoyment of reading. It is requirement of reading, right? Only about 42% of the Mexican population reads books. We're moving much and much more toward social media, digital printing, and so forth. But books, novels, those kinds of things are going down and down. Okay. Encouraging the love of reading at an early age offers children significant advantage in school and throughout their entire life. Today we have invited Daniela Elena Franco from Libros para Todos to tell us about their reading program. Libros para Todos was founded in 2013. The goal is to inspire a love of reading in children, particularly those in the rural communities, where access to books and literary programs are limited. Since their founding in 2013, they've worked with over 5,000 people, 5,000 children in Guanajuato. Elena began as a volunteer in 2011 and became the director in 2015. Elena was primarily raised in Philadelphia. She's Mexican-American and moved to San Miguel about 14 years ago. She has a double major in international relations and foreign languages. She has 2 postgraduate degrees, international norms and justice, and business administration. She now lives with her partner and her 2 children in Atotonilco. So please help me in welcoming Daniela to tell us all about Libros para Todos.
I feel like he did such a good job. He could just keep going. First of all, thank you all so much for not just being here, but for existing. You're such a great group of people, so curious to learn more always, and giving space to me, but to nonprofits every week, and that's just fantastic. I've been told this is a supportive group, and I'm among friends, so I won't be too nervous. My name is Daniela Franco. I've been here for a while, and I'm going to talk to you today a little bit about the project, and I'm going to start with some good news, then we're going to go into some bad news, and I'm going to finish up with some good news. Does that sound good? Okay, so the good news is that actually the Mexican government has done a ton in the last generation, we'll say, to increase access to primary education. So currently, between 95 and 100% of children between the ages of 6 and 11 are enrolled in elementary school in Mexico, depending on the state. And this is a huge increase from previous generations. So that's good, and that needs to be celebrated. Also, there's about, 95% of the population in Mexico is literate, which is also an increase. So a lot of progress has been made. Now we're going to go into the bad news. So if people who are visiting rural communities, how many people here go outside San Miguel? Okay, so it's really different outside San Miguel than it is here. It's actually amazing. You can go 15 minutes and it's like going back in time. But pretty much most rural communities have elementary schools now. So the challenge too is, so the bad news is that fewer people, there are more literate people now, but fewer people are choosing to read, as Ron said. And And this is a little mystifying, no? Like, we have more people that are reading more people that are literate in Mexico, but fewer people are reading. And if you go to these rural schools, you start to understand why. So currently, although there are more schools now than ever, actually, the infrastructure of these schools is very lacking. So when we're talking about infrastructure, we're talking about basic things like electricity and plumbing, but also materials. And most of the schools that we work in are, they don't have books. So, and the few books that they might have are just the textbooks that the SEP, the public education system, gives them. So, in studies, they show that ideally they want schools that have the right building, water, electricity, computer, internet, and appropriate materials. And what's really lacking is in the building and in appropriate materials. Of course, I haven't seen a school yet that, unless Bill Wilkinson's been there, that has internet. So another thing that's a little disturbing is that reading comprehension levels are way down. So if you look at your handout, the first 2 points, some 53% of students in Mexico attain level 2 or higher in reading. This is an OECD average of 74%. So level 2 means these students can identify the main idea in a text, find information, though sometimes complex criteria, and can reflect on the purpose and form of text when explicitly directed to do so. But only 1% of students scored at level 5 or higher in reading, when the average for OECD countries is 7%. So, oops, sorry. Yeah, so reading comprehension is lower in Mexico than it should be or what it could be. And another issue is that when they do these studies, like the World Bank or the OECD, they're not always disaggregating the data for urban versus rural in Mexico. So there's a huge difference between what kids in urban settings are receiving in terms of education or the access they have to opportunities like libraries versus the kids in rural communities. And that's where we step in. So as Ron said, our mission is to inspire children to love reading. And that word is really important, to love reading. So we're not an organization that comes in and teaches kids how to read. We're an organization that comes in with the idea that we want kids to become lifelong readers. And so understanding this difference is important because it changes the way we intervene, right? So I want to, kids that can have like a beautiful emotional experience with reading are more likely to pick up books the rest of their lives. And I want you to all think back to when you were children and to like, do you remember a book that was really important to you as a child? Or like a book that made you cry? Or, I mean, I think everyone here is an avid reader. And so a lot of these kids, we want to give them that experience. So what do? We find, first of all, a really great book written by a contemporary Mexican author. And then we talk to the author, publishers, etc., and we do a big read campaign with the kids. So sometimes we order between 500 and 800 books of that by that author, and we distribute it to schools that are in our network. We work with the teachers. We have workshops with the teachers on how can you make reading fun. Yeah. We distribute the books. They have, depending on the length of the book, between 4 and 8 weeks. And then we invite the author to come and meet with them in their communities. And it's really exciting. And sometimes we combine communities because limited time of the author, which is also exciting because we'll like bus kids from one school to another. And this might be their first field trip. It also might be the first book that they take home. And then the chance to speak with the author, to get their book signed, ask questions, to learn about how this person became an author, we find to be really inspiring. And I'm happy to say that we're actually in the middle of a big read right now. So we had our workshop with the teachers a week and a half ago, and we have, I think, 9 communities participating in this particular big read. We've distributed 500 books, and our author is coming November 6th to 8th, and he will actually be in the theater on November 8th, where we're getting together 3 different communities. We're busing them in to see the library. So we do this twice a year. And last year was really cool because we had this great book. It was for slightly younger kids, like first through fourth grade. And the author, who obviously wrote the book, but his wife is an opera singer for a children's opera company. And so we actually brought the whole opera company to Dolores, Hidalgo, and it was attended for free by over 1,000 children in Dolores, Hidalgo, and we had 800 kids reading the book. So that was really exciting. So we do some, thank you. So I don't have a PowerPoint today, but I do have a quick video, if you wouldn't mind, Diego. Good. Thank you. So just a little more information. We currently have about 25 communities in our network. This is always growing. We only pick communities that we are invited to, communities where the teachers, the director, and the parents are inviting us to be there, that they show enthusiasm. We think we've tried in the past just donating books, and that doesn't work. So we really include the teachers in our like staff. They're part of our team, so that we know that the kids will not just be receiving a book, but will be working with that book in preparation for the author's visit. We also, as you saw some photos from the summer camp, our program has been growing over the years. It started off like, let's just try this, and we had 15 kids. And now this past August, we had 110 children in 4 different locations attending summer camp for free, including one of the communities which is close to the Presa. We took them all to, ¿cómo se llama? La Cañada de la Virgen, the archaeological site, which we thought was really important because that's part of their cultural heritage, right? And they hadn't been. And we took their moms too, which was fantastic. So yeah, so we're open to like creative ideas, special events, etc. We also have this really great outreach program for volunteers. So people who have an interest in volunteering and working directly with children, if you have a high enough level Spanish, we invite you to volunteer, and they go out twice a week. Actually, they're there right now, working with a couple of the schools. We work with about 5 schools at a time doing tutoring services to help some of the kids that have fallen behind in reading. And we support a bunch of after-school programs here and in Dolores, Hidalgo. Actually, half of our programs are in the municipality of Dolores, Hidalgo. So, yeah. So that's the good news, is that we're doing a lot. We've been around for 11 years. We've worked with thousands of kids. Actually, one of my favorite events was with the EEE, the School for Special Education, which was a few years ago, maybe like 7 or 8 years ago. But there was a book about a child who was deaf, and we invited that author back this past spring, and she said that that event in particular was very meaningful for her, and she goes to events every month, So anyway, I'm open to collaboration, and yeah, thank you so much for letting me be here today.
Thank you very much. Do we have some time for questions? Anyone have a question for Danielle? Yes, sir.
Hi, Daniela.
Hi, David.
Good presentation. Thank you. Hi, Mick. I'm wondering about literacy in Mexico. Since I got here 27 years ago, the Mexican government has said 95% literacy. It hasn't changed. As a former English teacher, I've never quite believed that. But based upon what you know, Daniela, what is the government's definition of literacy?
So when they're talking about literacy, it's adult literacy. So anyone over the age of 15 can, it's kind of that level 2. So being able to read a text and understand what it means. It's not talking about a deeper comprehension or kind of the thinking skills that we want to strive for. And when we talk about literacy, it's also what they're talking about is, are people reading magazines, newspapers, books, online blogs, etc. So it's not like, they're reading Don Quixote, right? It's like, are they reading the newspaper or a magazine? Does that answer your question?
Well, what about the 1.5? The other standard that I remember they used to use was Mexico was about 180th in the world in reading, and one of the standards was how many books did a child read?
Right.
And I'm talking 10 years ago now.
So that's
the average child, was 1.5 books a year.
Yes, that is correct. That's from a 2008 UNESCO study, and it was 108th out of 180 countries. Mexico was last in terms of number of books read per year. So that's specifically books, which is a little different than the literacy rate. Yeah. And that is exactly why we exist. It's because, okay, so people can read. It's like Mark Twain said, a man who does not read has no advantage over the man who cannot read. And that's where we find ourselves right now. So, yeah.
Anyone else? John?
Yeah.
Good morning, Daniela.
Good morning, John.
Are you able to share approximate costs of putting together a production and visiting author, etc.? What sort of budget numbers do you have?
Yeah, so generally the round number is $5,000 to do a big read campaign, but it changes a lot depending on the price of the books. That's the biggest one. We have a bit of a standard fee for authors coming, and we try to lower that always with finding like guest housing, etc. But the cost of the book, so the opera, for example, was $10,000 because we were bringing 14 people from Mexico City to put on this event. But we thought it was worth it. I stand by that. The kids were so excited. They had read this book, and then they get to see it performed on stage in musical form. So cool. So
Not so much a question, but just an observation that the number of books read per person per year is plummeting worldwide.
yeah,
As we spend more time on social media and less time having the attention span sufficient to read a book. And it's reflected in critical thinking skills, and it's reflected in sort of all across societies across the world, people's ability to have the focus necessary to follow an idea through a novel is just dropping like stones. And
Yeah.
you know, your organization and in encouraging this among children is marvelous, but it's a problem we should all be aware of. It was just recently studies were you know commented on in the sort of press about how the numbers of books read by literate people is plummeting as we all rely on our phones and social media.
I feel that. I mean, I used to carry around a book with me everywhere, and if I had to sit and wait for 5 minutes, I would take out my book. And now, of course, I'm like, right? So it's like, it's something that we have to discipline ourselves to do too, right? It's important though. I mean, one thing we didn't talk about is that reading gives you skills that, you know, your phone's not going to give you. So like, it builds creative thinking, critical thinking skills. Kids that are reading more achieve higher educational goals. So we're talking about long-term strengthening of civil society, of democracy. It's like these are important things. And what we see is just that the kids read a book, they get it, they love it, they're excited to see the author, they want to read more, and they want to start their collections at home. And then, you know, but it takes work even for us, right, to keep reading. Yeah. Exactly what you said, yeah. Yes,
I have a
Diego.
question on Zoom. Does reading encourage students to stay beyond elementary school?
That's a good question. I think that when kids are doing well in school, they keep going to school. So what we have found also is that the communities where well, let me say that the children that are falling behind in their classes are at greater risk of dropping out at middle school level. And so, for example, in Dolores, we have a couple of after-school programs where kids can go there and have help with their homework. And we're trying to build a library in one of those communities now, so they can read more outside of school. But yeah. Our network is of 25 communities right now. But that means that it kind of shifts between 7 and 10 each semester, each half year, when we include old ones again, and we'll include a few new ones. So we just started working with a new community last week, for example.
So, do you have a program for volunteers?
Yeah, we do. We meet twice a week for a meeting, but they go out twice. We meet every 2 weeks with a meeting, but they go out every Tuesday and Wednesday to work at 3 different schools. And it's a really great team of volunteers. And I welcome anyone who wants to sign up for that. So Wednesdays too. Yeah.
Hi, Daniela. It's so nice to see you. So
Hi,
I have a question that I've always thought. Do you consider an audiobook like reading? And if so, wouldn't that be easier to distribute among the kids?
Audiobooks. Are audiobooks easier to distribute? Well, I'm kind of old-fashioned. Like, I feel like the entryway to reading should be a book. Yeah. I love audiobooks. My husband, I'm like an addict. Like, I'll stay up late and like listen to my audiobooks. But I still think the best way to get kids in love with books is through an actual book, because people also ask about like electronic, like e-readers and stuff. But I don't know. I just feel like maybe it's a generational thing, but like as a child from before the internet, I really like having a book. And if you expand into e-readers and audiobooks, fantastic. It's still part of it. And also like with the little kids, we do some storytelling, like inviting cuentacuentos to come. And that's like another way, like before they can read, to get them into the reading thing. So that's kind of like an audiobook. Yeah. No.
I'm asking if Rotary has worked with her.
No, not yet. I don't. Yeah. Thank you.
To your point about holding a book, I do a lot on Kindle. It's not the same as holding a book.
I'm open to new ways of intervening, definitely. But when I see little kids flipping the pages, looking at the younger kids, looking at the pictures, there's just something really magical in that. And so our goal, like between now and the end of the year, is there's this after-school program in Dolores. It's been going on for literally decades, and they do it all with nothing. And if you go into this room, I invite anyone to come with me. I would love to make that space a beautiful learning center for these kids that are in a very at-risk neighborhood. I want to, maybe paint a mural, get some bookshelves, more books, and healthy snacks for when they come. So that's currently my dream focus for the next few months. And of course, the event on November 8th here.
So I had a friend who contacted me this week, and she has a bunch of art books and stuff like that. She wants to donate. Could you use them in any way?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. We have an office now in Colonia Guadalupe. It's like across from Heels. And we are always first of all, it's a library. You're welcome to come in and take out a book. And we accept donations all the time. So if you have any donations, please, you can drop them off. Or you can contact me. I have my card. I also have a handout. And on this handout, there's information on how to contact me. Books to donate. Yeah. Well, we also take books in English, but the preference is books in Spanish.
But if it's like an art book where you could.
That's totally, yeah. That's good. That would be great.
Anyone else?
Some 60 years later, I still have very fond memories of reading Dr. Seuss books. I'm wondering how well they translate into Spanish. Some of them are rhythmic. Are they? Okay.
I used to read those to my kids. They had so much fun.
I love Dr. Seuss.
Yeah, they were so unique and magical.
Yeah. What's
Thank you.
fantastic about right now is that there are a ton of great Mexican writers of children's books. I mean, it's fantastic, and they're enthusiastic, and they're just so. We have a lot of material to work with right now. Great.
Thank you so much.
Yes, I do. Nancy Drew. No.
We have one. Enrique has one last.
One last question. How do they contact you for choosing the school? I mean, or the place that you are going to? They need to call you, right?
So someone needs to contact me.
Uh-huh.
It has happened where we just show up and we're like, oh, it doesn't really work. So it's usually either word of mouth, or the supervisor says, I've seen what you did and the school is fantastic. I have another school that would be great. Can I show you that school?
Okay.
The new school though, Bill Wilkinson was like, I have a school for you.
Thank you.
So who read Persimmon when you were a kid? Persimmon. It was about a horse. Or the Hardy Boys? Not everybody read the Hardy Boys. I mean, all the boys read the Hardy, but there was a girl's equivalent to the Hardy Boys. Nancy Drew, yeah. Tom Swift. They're all great memories. So the Rotary has 7 areas of focus, and these are the 7 areas that we think if we do projects in these areas, they have profound impact on society. One of the areas of focus is literacy, and is literally reading literacy, learning to read for people who are illiterate, and it's not just kids; it's for adults and everyone else too. We did a project a few years back. It was a mobile library. Ivar was the leader of that project. We did it in conjunction with CASA, and we were sending out this mobile library to various communities, and it was hugely successful to my knowledge. Did we work with you on that at all? No. Yeah, and it was great. So normally in Rotary, so there's different kinds of grants. I mean, we could just do a local grant with you all to try to support like a smaller adventure. Or if you ever want to grow it, then we could look at doing something bigger. But I feel certain that our club would be very excited working in this with you. It's amazing what you've accomplished. So yeah, let's do that. Let's talk about it.